Hey everyone, how's it going today, and welcome back to another update. So today's update is going to be a little bit interesting because I really want to talk about a new program that some people have been asking that really wanted me to cover, which is really about the $7,500 stimulus program that was included inside of the most recently approved fourth stimulus inflation bill that we have been talking about. If you guys haven't checked it out, I did make a video recently that talks about certain details related to the bill. Definitely highly recommend. I believe the name of that video is literally just called Official Bill. It's also going to be at the end screen at the very bottom, so if you guys are interested in watching it after this. But the big idea is that within the recently approved fourth stimulus package, there was a program that was also approved with it that was meant to do about a $7,500 stimulus related program. Now, before we go any further, I think it's really important to clarify certain things about this because again, these are things that many people have already asked, and as always, feel free to comment any other questions if you guys have any. But the big idea is that it might sound a little bit ambitious, but the big reason why it is such a huge amount of, it's like a $7,500 stimulus check, is that I think it's important to note that this is not your traditional stimulus check where they're just going to write you, a $7,500 check that you guys can deposit. It's actually a lot more of a tax credit program that's really going on. The big idea is how this program essentially works is that and we're going to talk a lot more in details about this, but essentially is that it's a program where there are certain things that if you are able to potentially do it, they're trying to encourage certain kinds of things. Essentially what's going to happen is that they're going to potentially provide you guys with a $7,500 tax credit / cut, so you guys can either get that or at the very least not have to pay that. So in an indirect way, it is up to. It's also important to notice is that this is also an up to $7,500, so it does not mean you're going to necessarily get it if you are able to qualify, because again, this is a niche program. But of course, if this sounds a little bit confusing, all of these details we are going to talk about in today's video, but I figured I'd give a little bit of an intro to it. So as always, we are going to get to it, but real fast before we begin, as always, if you guys enjoy videos like this, remember to smash the like button. Of course, you guys can always decide. Consider subscribing and hitting the bell if you guys are interested in videos like this, and also of course other finance and news topics. And of course, as always, feel free to comment any questions or personal thoughts about honestly just really anything at all. It's really always great to hear from you guys. So that being said, let's get this video started. So we're going to start by talking about one of the programs, because there are actually several programs, just a couple, about 2 to 3 programs that we're really going to talk about. But the big idea is that maybe as a background story, because it's important to know where this actually comes from, is that one of the goals that President Biden and Congress had when they approved this most recent fourth stimulus package is that they really wanted to encourage things related to climate change and energy. They essentially wanted to create a way for our country to be able to run and have more energy used a lot more efficiently. So this program, about how this particularly comes in is that within that particular package that was just approved, they also approved this tax credit for saving energy related program. Essentially how this particularly works is that if you are someone that was interested in potentially creating home upgrades, now there is a way that you guys can potentially benefit from this even if you don't necessarily care about energy or the environment, but the big idea, which we're going to get to in a little bit, but the big idea really is that if you were someone that was potentially interested in trying to make some kind of home upgrade, but specifically related to energy, so this could be anything such as, like, for example, installing solar panels on your roof, changing materials, trying to make your home a lot more energy efficient or smart, that is where one of those things is that he's potentially going to be providing a tax credit depending on the kind of upgrade that you're looking to do, up to about 30% to cover the cost in order to make this upgrade. So if you are someone that was already potentially planning to do this anyway, then this is potentially going to be some money that could potentially be inside of your pockets, or at the very least that is no longer taken away. So you're kind of still, your bank account is going to still net the difference of about that particular dollar amount. Now, maybe now to move on to the $7,500 program that we've been talking about for a bit, is that, so what this essentially is that within trying to promote clean energy and electricity and everything related to that world, one of the things that President Biden and Congress is really trying to do right now is to try to promote the usage of electric vehicles. So how does this work is essentially is that they've recently created a program where if you are someone that potentially is interested, or just simply put is already going to be buying an electric or a hybrid, interestingly enough, car in the future, then this is definitely going to apply for you, because what they're going to do is to provide you guys up to a $4,000 tax credit for anyone that purchases a used vehicle, and then a $7,500 up to a $7,500 tax credit for anyone that purchased a new vehicle. Now, there are certain ways that this can potentially really maybe benefit you, even if you're not interested in buying a car, which we're going to get to in a little bit. But to talk a little bit about how this program works is that essentially, since it recently got approved, from essentially August 16, 2022, all the way until around the end of 2032, this tax program is going to essentially apply. The big details to know about this particular program is that, first off, is that even though it does apply to electric vehicles, there are very, very specific models and very, very specific battery requirements of the vehicle that you're currently purchasing that has to apply in order to get onto this program. Additionally, about 40% or more of the critical minerals, so essentially just simply put, 40% or more of the things that are used to assemble this vehicle has to be made within the US. So a lot of this stuff is really also about trying to focus in on trying to promote clean energy and usage, but specifically in the United States. And I think that's particularly something that's important to note. So you can't necessarily do this if you're trying to purchase like some kind of international vehicle of some kind. It has to be made in the US. There are also certain income requirements. So for example, if you are a single individual, you have to have an income of 150K or below, so 150,000 or below. If you are a head of household, it's going to be 2,000 to 225,000 or 225K or below. Or if you are a married couple, then the income cap is going to be 300K/300,000 or below, which I think for most people that are watching this, because I know a lot of people are still in some kind of strapped situation, which definitely feel free to share any stories, because it is always interesting to hear what's going on out there, then at least this requirement is going to probably apply to you guys at the very, very least. Now, how can this exactly benefit us, as just mentioned, even if you're, maybe let's say for example, you're not very interested in trying to buy an electric vehicle of some kind? Well, the biggest benefit really about this program is that it's also not necessarily about having an immediate effect, although that's true too, but one of the goals that President Biden and Congress has by doing all of these programs is really also a lot about the long-term benefits. So why might this be maybe something of interest is that because even if you're not necessarily interested, or maybe you just haven't considered of doing some kind of, renovation, anything in that particular world, the big idea is that beyond these tax credits, one of the benefits to potentially trying to do these particular upgrades is also about trying to save money. So for example, like let's say for example right now you're getting your oil, your gas, everything the traditional way. What this is going to potentially do is also to encourage people to make these upgrades, because by making these upgrades long term, you're also kind of saving money in a lot of ways. So for example, maybe now if you get an electric vehicle, you don't have to pay money on gas anymore. This is especially true because gas right now is very, 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 very expensive. I believe in California, I've heard stories of people paying over $8 per gallon. That is a very, very big thing. So why this might apply to you is that because even if you're not necessarily interested in it now, if you were to be able to maybe hear about the benefits, especially if this ends up becoming popularized in the future, maybe this can become a growing interest, or a new, fresh growing interest to now consider doing this. Because potentially in a way, even beyond these tax credits, it can also potentially help you guys, or just help whoever's interested in doing this, save money in the long run by just simply making these upgrades, by creating cheaper and better sources of energy, fuel, gas, oil, electricity, all of that stuff. It just really, really goes on. And I think that's probably the most important thing, to maybe be able to at least get an idea of what's happening inside of our country and also just inside of our lives in general, because again, this is also a personal side to it as well. But of course, beyond this is that that's probably pretty much most of what I really wanted to share in today's update. So as always, if you guys hopefully found that relatively insightful, remember to smash the like button if you guys hopefully did. Of course, you guys can always decide, but it is greatly appreciated. Consider subscribing, hitting the bell. And of course, as always, feel free to comment any questions, personal thoughts, maybe about what you think about this particular program, or really just anything at all. So that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, stay safe, stay well, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.